Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonkson, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hey, welcome to today's podcast. Today we have my good friend Pastor Scott on, and man, we're talking about such an amazing subject that I think we all deal with, and it's the enemy of insecurity. It is an honest and transparent conversation. You're going to love today's podcast with my friend Pastor Scott. But before we jump into it, I want to let you know about Church Boom University. If you've never checked that out before, go to churchboom.org and you'll find it there. Church Boom University is a monthly subscription for $29 a month. You get books sent to you. You get master classes, how to raise up leaders, how to raise up your income in the church, how to develop volunteers. It's all there. Master classes, videos, tutorials, books sent to you. It is incredible. Sam Chan, many others are part of it. You need to check it out. You really do. It's an ongoing way for you to commit to your personal development. So make sure to go to churchboom.org and check out Church Boom University. But let's now jump into the conversation with my good friend, Pastor Scott. Man, let's jump into it, man. How can I serve you today? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you, in your coaching experiences, you've talked to different churches, different staffs and everything. What are some qualities, skills, disciplines that you see in some of the top, best executive pastors? What do they exhibit? What are the things that they have? What are you seeing that they're doing?
Well, in the top executive, a couple thoughts I have about that in that executive sort of leadership, if you will. I'll say a couple thoughts about that. One, I always say that because you guys are growing and God's going to, allow some more executive team members. The one thing I always talk about is foundation versus future growth. I think you and I have talked about that before.
Yeah.
What are the foundational things I think are really important? So I always talk about foundational being those are the things you have to have. Those are the things that they have to have before they even get on the playing field of the church. Future is you want them to continue to grow and develop, of course. Everybody should be. But the foundationals, what are those foundational things? And those, I think, are really the question. When we start talking about executives and we start looking at that level, I was just with your staff recently. We talked about that. I would say one of the big ones is the ability to execute. An executive level person has to have the ability to execute and be able to get things done. I think they also have to have the ability to not only execute, but to create something out of nothing. To be able to take, hey, this is, a campaign, a drive, a building project we're doing, a whatever it is, and we create something out of nothing. I think they have to have the ability to inspire and correct. Inspire and correct. One thing I always say is that, I see guys that have the ability to inspire because they believe in people, but they're afraid of correcting. I have seen those that just spend most of their time correcting problems, but they never inspire. And I think they have to have the ability to inspire and to correct, especially at the executive level.
Yeah.
So something out of nothing, they execute, they build, they have the ability to inspire and correct. And I would say naturally, they have to have a natural tendency towards loyalty. Their loyalty to the lead pastor is going to be incredibly, crucially important. That they are able to, that they're able to be incredibly loyal. And be able to help the pastor, defend the pastor, look out for the pastor, always stand up, even if they don't always, maybe always agree. I think they have to be able to do that. And that last thing you and I've talked about more than once is that gravitational, attractional pull. Mm-hmm. Now, I think there's different levels of it, but I do think they have to have some level of people like them. People want to be around them. The thing I always think is, Scott, is that I think even you have to be able to say, people have to say about you, I like being around Scott. He makes me better than I am. I like being around Scott. He makes me feel like I can conquer anything. He always brings out the best in me. He helps me go from a 7 to an 8. I like being around that guy. He always makes me. I have, excuse me. I have a couple people like that in my life. Like there's a couple people in my life. When I see them at a conference or I see them at an event, I can't wait to get over to them. And it's selfish because I'm like, they're gonna make me feel like a superhero. They're gonna build me up. But they're also challenging me, and but they're gonna make me feel like, I'm a winner. And you need to be able to do that, because as the organization grows, the pastor starts moving into this sort of, he's spending time, creating funds and creating options for that. He's creating time with vision. He's not a lot. Sometimes as the church gets bigger, the executive team becomes more of the day-to-day. And if that day-to-day level needs to be, man, I love being around that dude. I love being around him. And people need to be able to say that about you and about any executive leader. So those are some of the things that I would call foundational. Obviously, we're always growing, but I always say there's foundation and future growth. Those are the foundation things that I would be looking for.
Yeah. No, that's good.
When you look at those things, out of curiosity,
when
you look at those things, coaching moment, some of the things I just listed, which one do you look at for yourself and go, I got to grow in that area?
Yeah,
I think part of it has to be lead pastors as well. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, the two that I think jump out the most are create something out of nothing, and then the attractional pull, like people like being around me. Like I'm not like a unlikable person. I don't think I am. At least no one said that to me. But I'm also not super outgoing, and I don't necessarily I guess walk into a room and naturally work that room or whatever. I think it's more like a one-on-one type thing. And so that I think that can sometimes work against me if I'm more introverted and withdrawn and all of that. And then the creating something out of nothing. I struggle with sometimes where if Rob presents this idea and is this is where we want to go, and there's not a whole lot of details or whatever, and it's it's up to me to figure it out. I can spin my wheels sometimes trying to figure out how do I get this started? How do I put all the details in this, especially if it's something I've never done or I don't know, it can be difficult to get going. And then going back to what you talked to our staff about, that's where the procrastination comes in, because I don't know how to do it or I can't do it well, and then I start putting it off or whatever.
Yeah, I would say to those things, building something out of nothing. I love the book Who Not How. It's a book that I've been flipping through over the last few months because I just keep going back to it. The idea of who not how is if the who not how is this. If you set a goal and it's big, I want to achieve something that I've never achieved before and I don't have a clue how to do it, you got to get the right who's on board. It sounds very Dr. Seussish, but you got to get the right who's on board, right?
Yeah.
If it's not that big of a deal and it's not that big of a thing to accomplish, then you can go straight to how. So if I'm like, hey, Rob, or hey, Scott, we need to build our ushers department, or we need to do something, whatever it is. If it's something small, and you're like, I can do that, then you don't need the who. The problem with that is if it's so small, you can go straight to how, then you're not setting goals that are that big.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, we launched a coaching certification program. It's going extraordinarily well. And people signing up, they're loving it. But when you back up a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we're like, man, we want to launch a coaching certification program. I've never done that in my entire life. I've never launched one before. I know how to coach. But I'm like, what do people need to see? What do they want? What does it look like? Who's going to load all that? How are we going to do all this? And so I went and got a bunch of people in the room. I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do this. You guys do. Tell me how to do this. So I got the right who's in the room because what I wanted was too big for me to do it myself. So the reason I say all that is just because just know this. If you can do it all by yourself, you're not setting very big goals.
Yeah.
So, that to be a warning either way. Secondly, you want to set things so big that you're able to get the right who's on the board. And get the right who's on the board. And it just wants to be so big that you have to have them. When we go over to the attractional, gravitational side, the thing that I would encourage you on that is I think I don't think it's a matter of introvert, extrovert. The most powerful introvert leader I know is Hal Donaldson, the founder of Convoy of Hope. He is he's just an amazing leader. I love him, love serving him, love being with him. Been on the team for years. He's so amazing. Love that guy. But I don't know if he would consider himself an introvert, but he's kind of quiet, very relaxed, very laid back. Maybe he's not an introvert. I don't know. That would be up to him to answer that question. But very laid back, very calm, but incredibly strong. And he has figured out a way to have a gentle strength that is pretty amazing. And he has figured out a way to encourage the right people at the right time. I don't think it's a matter of someone like you saying, I don't want to encourage someone. I don't think that's it at all. What I think it is it's not a natural part of your habit. Being an extrovert or being an introvert, you can encourage people, you can inspire people, regardless of whether you're introvert or extrovert. But it's a matter of changing the habit. So I think I told you one time that I'm an extrovert, no question about that. But I'm, yeah, that was like from the word go. But the thing is naturally encouraging people wasn't normal for me. So I've had a coach in my life for over 10 years, two of them. So many years ago, my coach told me, it's not natural for you. You want to encourage people. It's in your heart, but you don't think about it. And not only that, they said, man, when you're sitting there usually like this, like you're upset, you got to have that mean look on your face, and so I don't know if I told you this or not, but I put it on my laptop. I put it on my computer at the office. I put it everywhere. I put smile and encourage, little notes. So let's pretend that I'm looking at I'm looking at a big screen right now here in the studio. You're on the other side, and you and I are just having an appointment right now. You don't see my screen, but it says smile and encourage. And the whole time I'm sitting there listening to you, and I'm figuring out a way to encourage you. I did that for a couple of years. Notes for a couple of years. How silly is that? But because I wanted to change it. Now everybody's like, dude, you're the most encouraging guy on the planet. Dude, you're always smiling. I'm like, I fixed it. I wasn't naturally that way, naturally an extrovert, but I wasn't naturally encouraging and naturally smiling. I just fixed it. And I think you could do the same thing. Yeah. Just fix it. And if you literally have to write notes and to remind you until it just becomes a habit, then do what I did. People kind of, it's kind of funny, but it worked. And now I think people look and say, dude, you're always smiling, you're always encouraging, you're always making people feel like a winner, and that way people want to be around you, they want to be near you. Like, yeah, but I worked on that. I wasn't born with it. So just something to think about. You can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, because I do think like I fall in line with that. Like I'm not a natural encourager. It's one of those things where it's like, hey, you did a great job. Good. Like you did what you were supposed to do. Why do I need to like shout you out or give you praise? Or like, it's like, and so I think I have a habit of, just focusing on like, hey, what needs to be fixed or what needs to improve or what went wrong. And not everybody wants to, people don't want to hear that all the time. They do want to be encouraged for doing a good job. And so I can definitely grow in that area. So yeah, I might be putting some notes all over the place.
Well, I that's what I did. My coach told me to do that years ago, and I was like, all right. I felt silly doing it. But then after a while, I thought, I think it's starting to work. And it got to a point where I just took the notes down, and I thought, I think I changed the habit. It took a while, but I think I changed it. Yeah. And you can change it. It'll work. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you'll just become that guy. And then people will be like, man, I like being around that guy. It just makes me better. And I'm telling you, it will transform your leadership when you become that guy. And you can become that guy. You don't have to be an introvert or an extrovert. It doesn't make any difference. You can become that guy. So anyway, hope that helps.
Yeah. It does help. Thank you.
What else you got?
This is kind of a follow-up from what we were talking about when you were on site visiting us. But we've talked about like being secure in your leadership to have like when you have more talented people around you. And that's something that really resonated with me when you were going through it, because like I do want to have talented people. I don't want to be one of those people that's threatened, and I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. But at the same time, there is something that kind of wells up inside of me sometimes where I'm like, man, it's my job to be doing this. But if someone else steps in and does it, I'm like, I want to celebrate that. But part of me is like, I feel like I've dropped the ball or whatever. So how can I work on that security to be, okay with not being the smartest person in the room and not being the most talented person in the room?
Right. Yeah, that is well, first of all, Scott, that is a incredibly transparent and honest question. And man, I hope everybody that's listening is sitting up in their seat or whatever, because that's an honest question. It's saying, hey, because what you're saying is, I want to be a secure person, but when someone ends up being the smarter person in the room, or I've got another executive team member, or I got a leader, I got a whoever that's just as good and maybe in some areas better than me, how do I deal with that? I think it's an honest question, and I think if you don't deal with that honest question, what happens is we unintentionally put a shade or a lamp or something over their light. We unintentionally don't want them to shine. We unintentionally make sure that their idea is shelved a little bit. I think insecurity brings out the worst in us, because it causes us to do things that we would never admit. Oh, I'm not letting that person shine. I'm not going to give that person a chance. I'm not going to let that person lead. Pastors all over America, it's like, I'm not going to let that guy speak. He's better than me. They're never going to say that, but they will. And so it happens, and insecurity brings out the worst in us. And one thing I shared with you the last time we were together is insecurity is not something that you outlive, it's something you outgrow. And the difference is, outliving it is, I think people think, hey, when I get in my 40s, I'll be fine. When I get in my 50s, I won't be insecure. You're in a fantasy, because you're never going to outlive it, buddy. You're just going to be older, and you're going to be older and probably even more insecure. So it ain't going anywhere. So you think you're going to outlive it, you can forget it. You have to outgrow it. Means you got to get better than that. Mm-hmm. You have to learn to outgrow it. I think a lot of that has to do with our relationship with the Lord. And I'm not trying to super spiritualize it and just say, oh, it's just all, but it is. There's something there where it's like, I think we have to come into a confidence in our calling of who we are, who God has made us, God's place in our place in God's kingdom, who we are in Christ. Our confidence comes from Him. Our confidence comes from, I'm a child of the living God, and that God's got a place for me, and I don't want to walk in an insecurity. I think we have to. I know that's just kind of a simple spiritual thought, but I don't think we all do that. I know I don't sometimes. Sometimes I fail in that, where I'm like, I got to walk in the confidence of who God's called me to be, and God has a place for me in the kingdom. And I think we have to walk in that rather than always fighting our insecurity, fighting our value, fighting our worth, fighting, are we good enough? Are we smart enough? Are we talented enough? We have to know who we are. I think that's God's side, or our side with God, if you will. Mm-hmm. I think our side is, we have to know when our head hits the pillow every night that we are growing. Because the time to grow isn't when someone walks in the room and realizes they're smarter than you, and you're like, I better get my acting together and start getting smart and start growing. The time is always now. So for me, the confidence comes in my worth, value, and affirmation comes from who I am in God. And I got to rest in that, man. If you don't rest in that, and you're looking for, if your self-image and self-worth comes from the applause of people, it will die with their silence. Mm. If it comes from the applause of people, it will die with their silence. Your self-image, your self-worth, it cannot come from the applause of people, because it will die with their silence. And it will die. People will come in and out of your life. Some people will be encouraging. Some people will be discouraging. Some friendships will come fall apart. Some people this, some people that, whatever it is, it's all going to happen there. So you're going to be on a roller coaster ride if all our affirmation comes from people. It's got to come from who God's called me to be. The flip side of that is, the other side of that is, our growing, our developing isn't when someone comes in the room that's smarter than us. It's us going, am I learning? Am I growing? My head hits the pillow tonight. Did I learn? Did I grow? Did I develop? Did I get better? Did I read a book? What did I do to get better at who I am? Just the fact that the two things that we're talking about here, affirmation comes from God. Put a little note that says smile and encourage. Those are things like that changes who you are. Mm-hmm. changes the kind of leader you are. So when smart people get around you and all of a sudden you're around other lead pastors, lead people, executive team members that are just as good as you, if not better, you can walk in a confirmation and affirmation that comes from God, because you're not living by the praise of people, because, as we said, you'll die with their silence. You're also knowing, hey, I'm doing everything I can to become the 2, 3, 4, 5 talent person God has put in me to be. When I can rest in that, I'm never going to be Craig Rochelle. I can't lead a church that big. I really am not. So, this is funny. So I'm the founding pastor of South Hills. I'm not the lead pastor anymore. I don't do a lot of the day-to-day. We got a bunch of sites, but we're not near as big as someone like that. Okay? I don't think I'm wired. I don't know if I can do that. Maybe it's just not in my skill set. So you know what I did? I just thought, well, what if I help 1,000 churches grow 100 people? Then I'd have the biggest church in America. I would just do it differently.
Yeah.
Do you see where it's like, no, I can do that, because I feel very confident in the ability to coach and create a coaching organization that can coach thousands of churches. I know I can do that. I don't know if I can lead one, but what I can do is help 1,000 churches grow 100 people. And then I tell my team all the time, I said, we can have the biggest church in America that nobody knows about it. We just did it differently than everybody else. Yeah. And I don't think God actually cares either way, as long as people get to heaven. So it's just, it's operating in who I know I am. And I found my confidence in that. So who I am in Christ, not the applause of people. And am I growing and am I developing? Who I am in Christ deals with that insecurity. Growing, I think, is our part. Where it's like, okay, that's not God. God's not going to read the book for you. It's our part to get coached. It's our part to get developed. It's our part to put a sign on our little laptop that says smile and encourage. As silly as all those little things are, it's our part to make ourselves better. And then we walk in our affirmation and confirmation that comes from God.
Yeah. That's good. Good reminders. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have to put some of that on sticky notes too. So my whole computer, mirror, everything is going to be full sticky notes.
Filled with sticky notes.
Yeah. Just reminders of smiling, encouraging, and calling, and God, my identity. Yeah.
Well, hey, let me give you one more real quick thing, just because I thought of it. Another exercise I did, one was smile and encourage. So back up 8, 9 years ago, 10 years, 11 years, I put smile and encourage because I wanted to change the kind of leader I was. But then I got challenged with my affirmation comes from God, not from people. So what I did is I got my assistant and I said, look, I want you to find me 100 scriptures about who I am in Christ. I want you to put them on little index cards, type them out. I realize it's going to take a while. And I said, but find them. Find the best ones you can. And then put them on cards and then give me that stack. Dude, I had a stack this big. And when I fly on planes and I'm just sitting there, I would look through those cards to remind myself of who I am in Christ. Another thing that was practical to start changing that side. So I changed the smile and encourage, be the best leader I can. But I also, in that affirmation confirmation, I had decided to put 50 scriptures or however many you want on little index cards or get them typed out, do however you do it, and then just go through them. And just continually remind yourself for a full year who I am in Christ. Sitting at at the doctor's office waiting, you're just going through them. You're sitting there and maybe watch TV. And during commercials, I don't watch commercials. I go through them. Just little things where it was like, I just wanted to start rewiring. Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
How are we going to get transformed? We got to renew the mind. So I know that sounds silly, but those are all the crazy little silly things I did to make myself better.
Yeah. No, those are good things. I don't think they're silly at all. Yeah, that's good stuff.
They worked. Anyway, all right. What else you got?
Last one I'll throw at you is I'm sure you know this. We don't do membership. We do ownership, and we want people to take initiative to do things around our church and all that. But one of the tensions that we're constantly wrestling with is we want people to take initiative and fix problems and not wait for staff or just complain about things. But at the same time, we don't want things to be like a free-for-all and just everybody does whatever they want. We want it to fit us. And so it's a tension that we're constantly managing. So I didn't know if you had any insight on how we can help navigate that, help people still want to take initiative, but at the same time, making sure that they're not just doing whatever they want or, putting up random signs or whatever that may be.
Right.
and just going off the reservation.
So, so are they off the reservation? Are they? And you're talking about creating initiatives inside of the church. So, hey, we're saying, man, go for it, do great things, but they're creating initiatives in the church that are opposite of what you do. Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
that's what I make sure I understand it.
Yeah, take initiative to, so like if they see something or a problem in our church, or like they have the freedom to solve it or come up with a solution.
Okay,
Like
I got it.
If there's like a hole in the parking lot, like they're like, they don't complain about it or tell us about it, they go ahead and fix it or whatever it might be. Or they see something broken in the lobby, they fix it or whatever. But at the same time, we also have people try to solve things in ways that don't fit who we are or what we want or that we don't necessarily like or wouldn't do. And so it's like you've got to come and coach them on the back end. But then it's like, all right, we still want you to take initiative, but just kind of check with us first. Or it's that a weird tension.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's a great question. And I misunderstood at the beginning, but now I think I understand. So one is I love the idea of ownership. The idea, is way better than membership, in my opinion. I think membership demands rights and ownership demands responsibility. And so I think that's always better to go on the side of ownership. I would say I love that there, and this is probably going to be you're going to feel like, I don't know if this is really helpful or not. I really don't know, because here's what I think. Fight for ownership. Go for ownership. Deal with the one or two or three people that go a little off the rails, and you got to pull them back, or they solved the problem in a completely opposite way we would have done it. I would rather have, let's say you got 50 people just taking ownership, but two or three go off the rails. I'd rather deal with the two or three that go off the rails and then just deal with it one-on-one, but keep pushing the ownership. If I got 47 people marching to the right beat, but I got 3 people marching to their own beat, I'd rather deal with the 3 that's marching to their own beat. I don't want to change the ownership speech, the idea, the culture, the language. I want to keep it go, 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 go. And then once in a while, I got to deal with some pressure. I think that's that whole thing, problem to solve, tension to manage. That's just part of the tension to manage. Now, if it starts turning into 50 out of 50, that could be a little bit of a problem. But I highly doubt that, because I've had that where I feel like, man, people are taking ownership, and every now and then I'm like, what in the world? And then you got to deal with it, and it's a little tough. But personally, I think you deal with the onesie twosies as they come, because I think the benefit of that many people taking ownership way outweighs the one or two tough conversations I have to have. And I think deal with it. And if you have to say something ever to a group of leaders and teams, hey man, when you see something, fix it. If it's a major thing, or you might want to run it by us, because we might already be fixing it a different way, or we might already be handling it a different way. We might already spent money to help get it fixed. So run it by us first. You might want to tag a few lines in like that. That's not discouraging. Yeah. That's just like, hey, you might want to run it by us. We might already have it resolved. There might already be someone that's fixing it, and we're going down a course. So just run it by us, but please take ownership. You might want to tag that in there. You're still going to have a couple mavericks do whatever they want, and then you just deal with it. But I would rather deal with the tension of one or two if I got a whole vast army that are taking ownership.
Yeah.
But
no, that's helpful.
Yeah,
because I think I can get so bogged in on like the one or two things that are wrong, or the one or two mavericks or whatever, and miss the larger good that's happening. And so it's like, it's good. It's just a good reminder to live in that tension, and then even that language of like, hey, run it by us, because we may already be doing it. Like that's a great way to disarm that, not make it feel confrontational if you are correcting somebody or whatever. That's a good line. So
yeah. So and I think that we do that all the time in ministry. Is people get kind of wound up. Like I remember one time talking to who was it? Man, it was pastor of a church of probably 8, 10, 12,000. And he was saying that, we get people involved in ministry so fast around here, like we do. And someone asked him at this conference I was sitting at, I wasn't speaking there, I was just in there. And someone said, don't you ever run into like people that like, hey, they join up to the parking lot, and then all of a sudden they're out there smoking a cigarette while they're parking cars, and he goes, and they're just not using, they're not thinking like maybe this is not the right place. And he goes, yeah, once in a while. And he goes, but if I have 3,000 people that volunteers that joined in the ministry the last 3 years, and all I got to deal is the one guy with a cigarette, I'll deal with that.
Yeah.
It's like, no big deal, So that's kind of the thing. It's like, man, just go for it, And once in a while you got to deal with something. It doesn't mean the whole system's broken. It just means you got to deal with something. But you still had 49 people do it right. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's good. So anyway, anything else, man?
No, that's good. This has been really helpful and really good, so I appreciate it.
Dude, always good talking with you, man. I sure do appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, likewise.
All right, have a good day.
You too. See you later.
Wow, that was an incredible, transparent conversation with Pastor Scott, and just being honest about our own insecurity, and we all have it. I hope, man, you got a lot out of it today. Just want to remind you to go to churchboom.org. We talked about it at the beginning, to go to churchboom.org and check out Church Boom University. There are so many great things you can learn, though. So make sure to check that out and become part of that. I think you'll find a tremendous value in your personal development. We'll see you next time on the Fly on the Wall podcast.